The Cow and the Winter of Christmas. On a cozy farm in the heart of Wisconsin, the snow blanketed the ground like a white mantle, signaling the imminent arrival of Christmas. The barn, adorned with pine branches and colorful ribbons brought by the animals themselves, exuded a festive air that contrasted with the biting cold of winter. At the center of this animal community stood Donna Clarice, a mottled cow with deep, soulful eyes radiating incomparable tenderness. Known for her wisdom and compassion, Clarice was the emotional pillar of the farm, always ready to offer gentle advice or a comforting gaze. In contrast, the newly arrived Lila, a young goat with silky fur and restless eyes, carried with her a palpable sadness. Torn from her old home and family, Lila felt like an intruder in this new environment, unable to connect with the other animals or find her place. One afternoon, as snowflakes danced softly in the frigid air, Lila huddled in a distant corner of the barn, her silent tears mingling with the straw on the floor. Noticing the young goat's despair, Donna Clarice approached with soft steps. "Hello, little Lila," Clarice murmured, her voice warm. "It seems you are carrying a very heavy weight in your heart." Lila looked up, surprised by the direct approach, but grateful for the company. I just can't seem to feel at home here, Donna Clarice. Everything is so different, so strange." Clarice nodded understandingly. "Change can be frightening, can't it? But you know, sometimes it's in the differences that we find the greatest opportunities to grow." At that moment, a commotion erupted near the farm gate. A group of wild ducks had landed, exhausted and disoriented by the approaching snowstorm. The farm animals watched, hesitant, unsure how to react to these unexpected visitors. Driven by an instinct she couldn't quite understand, Lila was the first to move. With determined steps, she approached the ducks, welcoming them and guiding them to a safe shelter in the barn. Donna Clarice watched the scene with pride shining in her eyes. "Look," she softly remarked to the other animals, "how someone who felt lost can show the way to others." This act of kindness from Lila triggered a chain reaction. Inspired by her courage, the other animals began to approach, offering food, water, and comfort to the weary ducks. The barn, once divided by invisible barriers of distrust and hesitation, transformed into a space of unity and solidarity. As night fell and the storm raged outside, the animals gathered in a cozy circle. Lila, now at the center of attention, shared stories of her homeland, her words painting vivid images of distant landscapes and exciting adventures. Donna Clarice, observing everything with her wise gaze, realized that something extraordinary was happening. The young goat, who had recently felt so out of place, was now the link uniting all the animals, building bridges between different worlds and lonely hearts. As the night advanced and the stories flowed, a subtle transformation occurred in the barn. The fears and insecurities that had once separated the animals began to dissipate, replaced by a growing sense of community and belonging. However, not all was harmony on the farm. Hidden in the shadows, the old goat Goodnight watched the scene with suspicion. Known for his difficult temperament and resistance to change, Goodnight saw the arrival of the ducks and Lila's sudden popularity as a threat to the established order. "This isn't going to end well," he grumbled to himself, his narrowed eyes fixed on the joyful gathering. "These outsiders will only bring trouble. And that little goat, who does she think she is, changing things around here?" The tension between the growing unity of the animals and Goodnight's resistance set the stage for the conflicts to come. While most inhabitants of the farm opened up to new possibilities and connections, the old goat represented the fear of the unknown and reluctance to accept change. As the night wore on, the storm outside seemed to mirror Goodnight's inner turmoil. The winds howled, shaking the walls of the barn, as if nature itself were testing the strength of this newly formed community. Donna Clarice, ever watchful, noted Goodnight's agitation. She understood that for true harmony to reign on the farm, everyone would need to find their place, including the grumpy old goat. The challenge ahead was greater than simply welcoming strangers. It was about softening hardened hearts and building bridges where walls had once stood. The farm in Wisconsin, with its cozy barn and snow-covered fields, was a microcosm of diversity. In addition to Donna Clarice, Lila, and Goodnight, there were a variety of characters that brought life and color to the place. Near the barn lived Federico, a proud rooster with gleaming golden feathers. Known for his impeccable punctuality, he woke all the animals each morning with his powerful crowing. Federico took pride in maintaining the traditions of the farm and was initially hesitant about the changes brought by Lila and the ducks. "Order and routine, my friends," he would often say, "are the foundation of a prosperous farm." In the stable next door lived Estrella, a gentle mare with a chestnut coat. She was the confidant of many animals, always willing to patiently listen to others' troubles. Estrella had a special connection with Lila, recognizing in the young goat the same sensitivity she herself possessed. The newly arrived ducks, led by the wise Drake, brought tales of their long journeys. Drake, with his blue-green feathers and perceptive eyes, shared tales of distant lands and thrilling adventures, expanding the horizons of the farm animals. "The world is vast and full of wonders," Drake would often say, "but the true treasure lies in the bonds we form along the way." As the days passed, the habits and quirks of each animal became more apparent. Lila, with her insatiable curiosity, spent hours exploring every nook and cranny of the farm, uncovering small marvels that others had overlooked for years. Donna Clarice, on the other hand, had a ritual of watching the sunset every afternoon from a small hill near the barn. It was during these tranquil moments that she reflected on the day's events and thought of ways to help those around her. Goodnight, despite his grumpy nature, had a secret talent for predicting changes in the weather. His grumbling about joint pains were, in fact, reliable indicators of impending rain or snow. The farm itself had its own history. Built by German immigrants in the 19th century, it bore the marks of past generations. The old windmill, now covered in ivy, still turned with the winter breezes, silently telling stories of ancient times. The surrounding fields, blanketed in snow, would transform into a carpet of wildflowers in the spring, attracting bees and butterflies that brought life and color to the landscape. In the summer, the corn stood tall and golden, whispering secrets to the wind. As Christmas approached, unique traditions on the farm began to emerge. The animals gathered every night to sing carols, each in their own style, from Donna Clarice's melodious moo to the enthusiastic quacking of the ducks. Eager to contribute, Lila suggested a new tradition, the exchange of handmade gifts. She taught the others how to weave small ornaments with straw and ribbons, a skill she had brought from her old home. Meanwhile, Goodnight watched these changes with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Although reluctant to admit it, he began to feel a twinge of envy at how easily Lila integrated and brought joy to others. The farm, with its diverse inhabitants and evolving traditions, was becoming a place of transformation. Each animal, in their own way, was learning to make room for new ideas and experiences, challenging their own perceptions and prejudices. As winter deepened, the snow-covered landscape seemed an invitation for introspection and growth. The farm animals, guided by Lila's example and Donna Clarice's wisdom, were slowly discovering that the true magic of Christmas lay not just in decorations or songs, but in the ability to open their hearts to one another. With the harsh winter settling in, the farm faced new challenges. An unexpected snowstorm isolated the barn from the rest of the property, making it difficult to access food and water. The intense cold began to affect even the hardiest animals, and the scarcity of food threatened the harmony that had recently been established among them. Lila, now more integrated into the group, realized that her energy and agility could be useful. She offered to climb the haystacks and reach the food supplies stored in the barn's loft. However, her inexperience nearly caused an accident when a stack collapsed, almost injuring other animals. Donna Clarice, ever watchful, intervened calmly. Lila, your bravery is admirable, but we need to plan carefully. Each of us has unique skills that can help us in this moment. The wise cow gathered the animals and proposed a collaborative plan. The birds, able to fly through the gaps in the roof, were tasked with bringing information about the outside conditions. The pigs, with their keen sense of smell, helped locate edible roots buried under the accumulating snow inside the barn. The sheep offered their wool to keep the smaller animals warm. Meanwhile, Lila felt frustrated for not being able to contribute as she had imagined. Her attempt to help had caused more problems than solutions. She stepped away from the group, brooding over her thoughts. Noticing Lila's discouragement, an old horse named Trovan approached her. "Young goat, I saw your determination today. Did you know that your agile feet and balance might be exactly what we need for a special task?" Lila perked up, curious. Trovan explained that there was a narrow passage leading to a seed storage area, but it was too tight for most larger animals. If Lila could navigate this path, she could bring back vital supplies for everyone. With renewed hope, Lila accepted the challenge. Under Trovan's guidance and Donna Clarice's encouraging gaze, she ventured into the dark, winding passage. Fear threatened to overwhelm her several times, but she recalled the lessons of perseverance she had learned from her new friends. After what felt like an eternity, Lila emerged in the storage area. Her eyes lit up at the sight of sacks of seeds and some preserved vegetables. Carefully, she made several trips, bringing back what she could carry each time. Lila's return with the supplies was met with joy and relief from the other animals. Donna Clarice smiled with pride, seeing how the young goat had overcome her fear and frustration to help everyone. However, the celebration was brief. A deafening noise echoed through the barn. A part of the roof was collapsing under the weight of the accumulated snow. Panic began to spread among the animals. At this critical moment, Donna Clarice remained calm. "Friends, we have faced much together. Now, more than ever, we need to join our strengths." Under Donna Clarice's leadership, the animals formed a chain. The strongest, like Thunder and the bulls, positioned themselves strategically to support the weight of the compromised structure. The smaller animals, guided by Lila, quickly moved to reinforce the weak points with hay and wood. Working in unison, they managed to temporarily stabilize the roof. The immediate crisis had passed, but everyone knew this was just the beginning of a long winter. As the animals regrouped, exhausted but relieved, Lila looked around and saw something that touched her deeply. Each animal, regardless of size or species, had contributed in some way to overcoming the challenge. She realized then that belonging didn't mean being the same as others, but rather being part of something larger, where each had their unique and valuable role. Donna Clarice, noticing the change in Lila, gently approached her. "You see, my dear, sometimes the biggest challenges teach us the most important lessons about who we are and what we are capable of." As night fell, the animals snuggled together, sharing warmth and comfort. The snowstorm continued outside, but inside the barn, a new strength had been born, a strength made of compassion, courage, and the understanding that together they could overcome any obstacle. While the farm animals faced the harsh challenges of winter, Federico, the proud rooster, was grappling with a crisis of identity. With the sky constantly overcast, he could no longer determine the sunrise accurately. His off-timing cock-a-doodle-doos confused the other animals. Frustrated, Federico isolated himself, refusing to crow. Estrella, the compassionate mare, noticed the unusual silence in the mornings. She approached Federico, offering a listening ear. "Federico, your voice is more than just an alarm for us. It's a symbol of hope, reminding us that each day is a new beginning. Inspired by Estrella's words, Federico decided to adapt. Instead of announcing the dawn, he began to crow to mark important moments in the day, like meal times or animal meetings. His new role brought him a renewed sense of purpose. Meanwhile, Drake, the leader duck, faced an internal dilemma. His migratory instinct called him to leave, but he felt torn between this natural urge and his loyalty to the new friends who welcomed him. His restlessness didn't go unnoticed by Donna Clarice. One night, while everyone slept, she found Drake gazing at the sky through a crack in the barn. "The sky is calling you, isn't it?" she asked gently. Drake nodded, his eyes reflecting the distant stars. "I feel like I'm failing my flock by staying, but I would also feel like I'm abandoning all of you if I left." Donna Clarice reflected for a moment. "Drake, sometimes life presents us with tough choices, but remember, your heart is big enough to embrace both your nature and your new connections. Whatever you decide, you will always have a home with us." Donna Clarice's words comforted Drake, helping him reconcile his conflicting feelings. Grunholm, the old goat, continued to observe the changes on the farm with suspicion. However, an unexpected event shook his rigid stance. One particularly cold night, he found a small mouse trembling near his resting area. His first instinct was to drive the intruder away, but something stopped him. Remembering his own youth, when he faced harsh winters alone, Grunholm surprised himself and the others by offering the mouse a warm corner to rest. This small act of kindness slowly began to melt the ice around his heart. Lila, observing Grunholm's subtle transformation, saw an opportunity to build a bridge. She started including the old goat in her activities, asking for advice on how to survive the winter and listening to his stories from the past. As the days passed, the pressure of winter intensified. Supplies, though carefully rationed, began to dwindle. Tension grew, and small conflicts arose among the animals. Recognizing the need to keep morale high, Donna Clarice proposed an idea. "How about we share stories from our lives? Getting to know each other better can help us stay united." The nights in the barn came alive. Each animal shared memories, dreams, and fears. Lila spoke of her old home and how she learned to value new friendships. Drake recounted adventures from his travels. Even Grunholm, to everyone's surprise, shared memories from his youth. These storytelling sessions not only brought the animals closer together, but also revealed hidden skills and knowledge that could help them face their current challenges. However, as the days went by, it became clear that despite their best efforts, resources would not last until the end of winter. This realization loomed over the group like a dark cloud, threatening the harmony they had built. It was at this critical moment that Lila had a bold idea. She remembered an old path that Thunder had mentioned, one that could lead to a protected valley where there might still be vegetation. The journey would be dangerous, especially in the depths of winter. As Lila shared her plan, all eyes turned to Donna Clarice. The wise cow knew that the decision they made now could determine not only their survival, but also the future of their newly formed community. Lila's proposal to seek the protected valley sparked intense debate among the animals. Some, led by Federico, argued that it was too risky to leave the relative safety of the barn. Others, inspired by Lila's courage, believed it was their only chance for survival. Donna Clarice, after listening attentively to everyone, made a surprising decision. "Friends," she began, her voice calm but firm, "we cannot send Lila on this dangerous journey alone. I will go with her." An astonished silence fell over the barn. Donna Clarice, the maternal figure and pillar of wisdom, risking herself on such a perilous mission. The idea seemed unthinkable. Grunholm, to everyone's surprise, was the first to speak up. "This is madness. You are too important to us, Clarice. You can't take such a risk." Donna Clarice smiled gently. "Grunholm, my old friend, it is precisely because I care about all of you that I must go. My experience could be crucial, and this may be our only chance." Lila, touched by Donna Clarice's trust, stepped forward. "But Donna Clarice, you don't know the way like I do. Please let me go alone." "No, Lila," Donna Clarice replied firmly. "Your courage has brought us this far, but this journey requires more than bravery. It needs wisdom and experience as well. Together, we stand a better chance." Donna Clarice's decision triggered a wave of changes. Drake, feeling he could be of help, offered to fly ahead and scout the best path. "I can be your eyes in the sky," he said, his voice trembling slightly with the excitement of finding a purpose that combined his migratory instincts with his loyalty to the group. Trovan, the old horse, approached with heavy steps. "I know that passage better than anyone. I may not be as agile as before, but I can guide you part of the way." One by one, the animals began to offer their assistance. The sheep donated tufts of wool to keep Donna Clarice and Lila warm. The pigs used their snouts to dig in the snow, creating an initial path. Even the little mouse that Grunho had taken in offered to help, promising to chew through any rope or obstacle they encountered along the way. Grunho, witnessing the unity of the animals, felt something change within him. In a gesture that surprised everyone, including himself, he stepped forward. I also want to help. I may not be able to make the journey, but I can share what I know about surviving in extreme conditions." The plan took shape quickly. Donna Clarice and Lila would depart at dawn, initially guided by Trovan with Drake as their aerial scout. The other animals would work together to keep the barn secure and conserve the remaining resources until the return of the two. On the eve of their departure, an atmosphere of apprehension and hope hung over the barn. Lila, unable to sleep, found Donna Clarice looking out the window. "Donna Clarice," Lila whispered, "what if we fail? What if we can't come back?" Donna Clarice turned to the young goat, her eyes shining with a mix of determination and tenderness. "Lila, my dear, true failure would be not trying. Look at what your idea has already achieved. It has united us in a way I never imagined possible." She paused, glancing at the sleeping animals. "Regardless of the outcome, we have already won. We discovered the strength we have when we unite, when we overcome our differences and fears. This lesson, this bond we've created, is something that not even the harshest winter can take away from us." Donna Clarice's words calmed Lila's heart. She understood that this journey was more than a quest for food. It was a test of her transformation, her ability to face challenges, and her belonging to this community. The next morning, as the first rays of sun struggled to break through the heavy clouds, Donna Clarice and Lila prepared to depart. The other animals gathered to bid farewell, each offering words of encouragement and hope. As the two turned to leave, Grunholm stepped forward once more. With a voice thick with emotion, he said, "Come back to us. Come back home." At that moment, as Donna Clarice and Lila walked toward the unknown, with Drake flying overhead and Trovan guiding them through the first steps, something fundamentally changed on the farm. They were no longer just a group of animals struggling to survive. They were a family united by bonds stronger than blood, forged through the trials of winter and the warmth of their compassionate hearts. With the departure of Donna Clarice and Lila, the barn fell into a heavy silence. The absence of Clarice's gentle voice and Lila's vibrant energy was palpable. The animals left behind now faced the challenge of keeping hope alive and the barn running without their leaders. Federico, feeling the weight of responsibility, took on the task of maintaining the routine. His songs, once mere markers of time, became rallies of encouragement. "Wake up, friends! Each new day brings us closer to their return." Grunholm, surprising everyone, emerged as an unexpected source of strength. His stories of survival during past winters, once dismissed as the grumbles of an old grouch, were now listened to with rapt attention. He taught techniques for conserving energy and how to find warmth in the most unlikely corners of the barn. The sheep organized a rotation system to share the warmth of their wool. The pigs used their strength to rearrange the barn, creating more efficient spaces to retain heat. The little mouse, now named Faísca due to his speed, darted back and forth, delivering messages and keeping everyone informed. However, as the days passed with no news of Donna Clarice and Lila, anxiety began to grow. Some animals started to question whether sending them had been a wise decision. One afternoon, during a particularly fierce snowstorm, Estrella noticed a group of younger animals secretly planning a rescue mission. "We can't just sit here while they might be in danger," argued a young calf. Estrella intervened with kindness but firmness. "I understand your concerns, little ones. But remember what Donna Clarice always says, patience is a form of courage. Right now, our mission is to keep this place safe for when they return." Estrella's words calmed the tensions momentarily, but the anxiety continued to grow. Meanwhile, Drake returned briefly with news. He had seen Donna Clarice and Lila making slow progress through the icy landscape, guided by Trovone. Although the journey was tough, they were determined and moving in the right direction. This news brought a brief sense of relief, but also intensified the worry. The animals now had a vivid picture of the dangers their friends were facing. As supplies dwindled, challenges in the barn escalated. Small conflicts began to arise. One day, two hens fought over a handful of grains, something unthinkable just weeks before. Grunholm, seeing the situation deteriorate, took surprising action. He gathered everyone in the center of the barn. "Listen up," he began, his deep voice echoing in the space. "I know we're all scared and hungry, but look around. See what we've accomplished so far. We've survived the worst of winter. Donna Clarice and Lila risked everything for us. We can't let fear and hunger destroy what we've built." His words resonated deeply in the hearts of the animals. They remembered moments of unity, the stories shared on cold nights, the comfort they found in one another. Inspired by Grunholm's unexpected speech, the animals renewed their efforts. They created a fairer system for sharing the remaining resources. The nights, once silent and tense, were filled again with stories and songs, keeping alive the hope for Donna Clarice and Lila's return. One day, when the cold seemed more intense than ever, Faísca, the little mouse, discovered a small stash of nuts forgotten in a distant corner of the barn. This discovery, though modest, was celebrated as a miracle. It was a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there were still reasons for hope. As winter progressed, the farm transformed. What began as a group of diverse and often conflicting animals became a united and resilient community. Each challenge faced, each small victory shared, strengthened the bonds among them. And so, while anxiously awaiting news of Donna Clarice and Lila, the farm animals discovered a profound truth. True strength came not just from wise leadership, but from each of them rising to support one another in times of need. As days turned into weeks, Donna Clarice and Lila's journey became increasingly challenging. The rugged terrain and relentless cold tested their physical and emotional limits. Lila, though young and agile, began to feel the weight of responsibility. One night, exhausted and disheartened, she collapsed in the snow. "Donna Clarice, what if we're going in the wrong direction? What if we don't find the valley?" Donna Clarice, despite her own fatigue, maintained her characteristic calm. "Lila, remember why we started this journey. It's not just about finding food. It's about not giving up hope. Every step we take is a victory against despair." Now, inspired by Donna Clarice's words, Lila found renewed strength. She began using her agility to scout ahead, searching for the best paths through the deep snow. Drake, flying above them, faced his own challenges. The icy gusts and snowstorms made flying difficult. There were moments he almost gave in to the instinct to migrate south. But each time he considered leaving, he remembered the hopeful faces in the barn and found the determination to keep going. Trovone, guiding them through the initial stretches of the journey, surprised everyone with his endurance. Although his steps were slower than in his youth, his wisdom in navigating the treacherous terrain proved invaluable. One day, facing a particularly fierce storm, the group was forced to seek shelter in a narrow cave. Packed tightly in the confined space, Leela noticed Donna Clarice trembling uncontrollably. Without hesitation, Leela nestled beside Donna Clarice, sharing her warmth. "Now it's my turn to take care of you," she whispered. In that moment, Donna Clarice saw how much Leela had grown. No longer the insecure young goat, she had become a courageous and compassionate companion. As they advanced, each member of the group discovered strengths they never knew they had. Leela learned to read nature's signs, predicting changes in the weather. Donna Clarice, always the advisor, now became a source of physical determination, pushing herself beyond her perceived limits. Drake, on his scouting missions, not only searched for the way, but also found small oases of greenery beneath the snow, guiding the group to crucial food sources. After days of exhausting travel, they finally spotted what appeared to be the promised valley. However, between them and their goal lay a deep, icy gorge. Leela, looking at the chasm, felt fear gripping her again. How are we going to cross this? Donna Clarice surveyed the challenge ahead, then turned to her companions. "Together," she said simply, "each of us has something unique to offer. This is the time to trust one another completely." Working as a team, they devised a bold plan. Drake flew over the gorge, carrying a thin rope that Leela had woven from plant fibers found along the way. On the other side, he tied it securely to sturdy trees. Leela, with her natural agility, was the first to attempt the crossing, balancing carefully on the rope. Her courage inspired Donna Clarice, who, despite her fear of heights, followed the example of the young goat. The crossing was slow and tense. There were moments when the wind threatened to knock them down, but they held firm, encouraging each other with every step. When they finally reached the other side, exhausted but triumphant, an incredible sight awaited them. The valley, sheltered by tall mountains, was a green oasis amid winter. Dormant fruit trees promised abundance in spring. Crystal-clear streams meandered through the landscape. Leela, awestruck, looked at Donna Clarice with tears in her eyes. "We did it. We really did it." Donna Clarice smiled, her gaze reflecting not only relief, but a deep satisfaction. "Yes, my dear, and look at how much we've grown on this journey. You are no longer just a young goat searching for her place. You have become a leader, someone capable of inspiring and guiding others." As they explored the valley, gathering what they could to take back, Leela reflected on her transformation. She had left the barn feeling insecure and out of place. Now she was returning as someone who had faced her fears, overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles, and discovered an inner strength she had never known she possessed. Drake, landing softly beside them, shared his thoughts. "You know, I always thought my destiny was to migrate, to keep moving forward. But this journey has taught me that sometimes staying and fighting for what matters is the greatest adventure of all." Donna Clarice, looking at her companions, felt an immense pride. Each of us has grown in ways we could never have imagined. And now we not only have food for our friends, but also a story of hope and perseverance to share. With their hearts full of hope and their bags filled with provisions, they prepared for the journey back. The path would be challenging, but now they knew that together they could overcome any obstacle. As Donna Clarice, Leela and Drake got ready for the return journey, the barn on the farm faced its own critical moment. Supplies had reached an alarming level, and the cold seemed more intense than ever. Grunham, who had become a central figure in Donna Clarice's absence, gathered all the animals. "Friends," he began, his voice hoarse with worry, "our resources are almost depleted. We need to make a difficult decision." The animals glanced at each other, tense and apprehensive. Frederico, the rooster, stepped forward. "What exactly is the situation, Grunham?" "With what we have," Grunham replied, We can last for another 3 days, maybe 4 if we ration even more. After that, he didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone understood the grim implications. A murmur of fear swept through the group. Estrella, the compassionate mare, spoke next. What if some of us went out to look for Donna Clarice and Lila? Maybe we could find them on the way back. Estrella's suggestion sparked a heated debate. Some animals supported the idea, arguing that they couldn't just sit and wait for hunger to strike. Others insisted that leaving was too dangerous and that they should trust Donna Clarice and Lila to return. As the discussion intensified, Faísca, the small mouse, climbed to the top of a haystack. "Listen," he shouted, his thin voice cutting through the air. "What if we used our unique skills to prepare for whatever happens?" The barn fell silent, all eyes on the tiny mouse. Encouraged, Faísca continued, "The hens can search for hidden seeds in corners we can't reach. The pigs can use their snouts to dig in areas where there might be edible roots beneath the barn floor. The sheep can weave extra blankets from their wool to keep us warm for longer." Faísca's suggestion ignited a spark of hope. The animals began to organize, each finding a way to contribute. Grunhon, impressed with the little mouse's initiative, added, "And those of us who are stronger can take turns keeping the snow away from the barn entrances. That will give us more time when Donna Clarice and Lila return." The frenzied activity that followed transformed the barn's atmosphere. Desperation gave way to determination. Every small discovery, a handful of seeds here, some edible roots there, was celebrated as a major victory. Meanwhile, on the journey back, Donna Clarice, Lila, and Drake faced their own challenges. The weight of the provisions they carried made each step more difficult. Lila, noticing Donna Clarice's fatigue, suggested, "Maybe we should stop to rest." Donna Clarice, however, shook her head. "No, my dear. Every moment counts now. Our friends are counting on us." Drake, flying above, suddenly shouted, "Look, the path is blocked ahead." A recent avalanche had created a barrier of snow and rocks on the route they had taken to reach the valley. Lila's heart sank. "What now? We can't go back. It would take too long to find another way." Donna Clarice looked at the obstacle, then at her companions. Her expression was one of calm determination. "Remember everything we've overcome to get here. This is just another test in our journey." Indeed, as they contemplated the challenge ahead back in the barn, the animals worked tirelessly, united by a common purpose. The tension was palpable, but there was also a sense of unity that they had never experienced before. As the sun began to set, both in the barn and on the return path of Donna Clarice and Lila, everyone felt they were on the brink of something momentous. The actions they took in the coming hours would determine not only their survival, but also the future of their community. The stage was set for the climax of the story, with seemingly insurmountable challenges on both sides, yet also with a fierce determination and a newly discovered sense of unity and purpose. Night was falling quickly, bringing with it a biting cold that seemed to penetrate to the bones. Donna Clarice, Lila, and Drake stood before the barrier of snow and rocks, the last obstacle in their way back home. "We can't wait until dawn," Donna Clarice said, her voice firm despite the evident fatigue. "Our friends need us now." Lila, gathering all her courage, stepped forward. "Maybe I can climb up and find a way over." As Lila began her cautious ascent, Drake flew higher, searching for any opening or alternative route. The tension was palpable. Each movement Lila made over the unstable snow caused small avalanches to tumble down. Suddenly, a loud sound echoed through the mountain. A larger section of the barrier began to crumble, threatening to engulf Lila. "Lila!" Donna Clarice shouted, instinctively moving to protect the young goat. In that critical moment, something extraordinary happened. Drake, seeing the danger, dove toward Lila. With a strength he didn't know he possessed, he grabbed Lila by the wool on her back, pulling her out of the path of the avalanche at the last second. As the snow settled, they found themselves facing an opening created by the collapse. The path was clear, but time was essential. The passage could close up again at any moment with more snow. "Quick!" Drake shouted. "We have to go through now!" With renewed urgency, the trio rushed through the opening, Donna Clarice pushing the supplies with all her strength, Lila helping to guide the way, and Drake flying ahead to ensure the path remained safe. Meanwhile, in the barn, the situation was reaching a breaking point. Supplies were nearly depleted, and the intense cold was starting to affect even the hardiest of animals. Grunholm, seeing despair spreading, made a drastic decision. "Friends," he announced, his voice hoarse with emotion, "I've been keeping some dry hay for an emergency. It's not much, but it could give us a few more hours." The other animals were shocked. Grunholm, known for his selfishness, was offering his secret stash. Federico, moved by the gesture, joined Grunholm. "And I have some seeds I was saving. It's not much, but if we share it among everyone..." One by one, the animals began to reveal small stocks they had hidden, sharing them with the group. This act of collective generosity brought tears to many eyes. As they distributed their last resources, a distant sound caught everyone's attention. Faísca, with his keen ears, was the first to recognize it. "Listen!" he shouted, leaping with excitement. "It's them! They're coming back!" The news spread like wildfire, and the animals rushed to the barn doors. Through the falling snow, they saw 3 figures approaching: Donna Clarice, Lila, and Drake, exhausted but triumphant, carrying precious supplies. The scene that followed was one of pure joy and relief. Animals rushed to help carry the provisions, while others crowded around the returning heroes, offering warmth and comfort. Lila, with tears in her eyes, looked at the scene before her. "We did it, Donna Clarice, we're home." Donna Clarice, her gaze filled with pride and emotion, softly replied, "Yes, my dear, and look how our family has grown." Grunholm approached, his normally gruff expression replaced by a genuine smile. "Welcome back," he said, his voice choked. "You saved us." Donna Clarice looked around, noticing the changes in the barn, the signs of hard work and cooperation. "No, Grunholm, we saved ourselves, all of us, together." As the animals gathered to share the food and stories of their respective journeys, a sense of unity and purpose filled the air. The supplies brought by Donna Clarice and Lila, combined with the resources shared by the other animals, would ensure their survival until spring. Drake, landing gently, shared his decision. "I've decided to stay," he announced. "I realized that my true home is where the heart is, and my heart is here with all of you." As the night wore on, the animals huddled together, sharing warmth and comfort. The storm outside seemed less threatening now, a reminder of what they had overcome together. Lila, looking around at the smiling and relieved faces of her friends, felt a wave of belonging she had never experienced before. She finally understood the true meaning of home and family. Donna Clarice, watching the scene with her wise and tender gaze, knew that this experience had transformed them all. Winter was not yet over, but now they would face their challenges, not as isolated individuals, but as a united and resilient community. As the weeks passed, the harsh winter of Wisconsin began to show its first signs of easing. The snow, once a constant threat, was now slowly melting away, revealing timid green shoots that heralded the imminent arrival of spring. In the barn, the atmosphere was one of renewal and hope. The animals, strengthened by their shared experiences, worked together in a harmony never seen before. The space that had once been just a shelter had now transformed into a true home, filled with warmth and companionship. Donna Clarice, always attentive to the needs of others, noticed the subtle changes in each of the animals. Grunholm, once grumpy and isolated, was now often seen sharing stories with the younger animals, his hoarse laughter echoing through the barn. Federico, the rooster, had found a new purpose, using his crow not only to mark the hours, but to lift everyone's spirits with inspiring melodies. Lila, for her part, had blossomed in extraordinary ways. The once insecure young goat had transformed into a compassionate and confident leader. She now coordinated teams for barn maintenance and organized skill-sharing sessions among the animals. Drake, having chosen to stay, became a valuable member of the community. His tales of distant lands filled the nights with imagination, broadening everyone's horizons. One afternoon, as the sun set, painting the sky in golden hues, Donna Clarice gathered all the animals in the center of the barn. "My dear friends," she began, her gentle gaze sweeping across each face, "when winter arrived, we were just a group of animals divided by our differences. Today, I look around and see a family." A murmur of agreement rippled through the group. Donna Clarice continued, "We overcame not only the cold and hunger, but also our own fears and limitations. Each of you has shown a courage and compassion that fills me with pride." Lila, with tears in her eyes, added, "We've learned that our true strength lies in unity. No matter what the future holds, we will face it together." To everyone's surprise, Grunholm stood up. "I never thought I'd say this," he began, his voice hoarse with emotion, "but I am grateful for each one of you. You've taught me that it's never too late to open one's heart." As night fell, the animals stayed together, sharing stories, laughter, and dreams for the future. The barn, once just a wooden structure, now pulsed with life and love. Outside, the first signs of spring promised new beginnings. But for the animals on the farm, the greatest renewal had already taken place in their hearts. They had learned that true warmth comes not just from the sun, but from compassion and mutual care. And so, as the stars appeared in the night sky, the farm rested in peace, no longer fearing what tomorrow might bring, but eager for the new adventures they would face together as a family united by love and the challenges they had overcome. Though one tale has come to a close, the night still has more magic to share. The hero dog. The sun had barely risen when Buck, a robust Australian shepherd, set out for his morning rounds on the Montana farm. His coat, a blend of black, white, and brown, gleamed under the first golden rays piercing the morning mist. The vast fields of wheat swayed gently in the breeze, creating a golden sea that stretched toward the imposing mountains on the horizon. Buck sniffed the cool morning air, his senses alert, picking up the familiar sounds and scents of the farm. The distant mooing of cows, the clucking of chickens in the coop, and the aroma of fresh coffee wafting from the main house formed the morning symphony he was accustomed to. As he trotted along the property's perimeter, Buck noticed something unusual. A strange and unsettling scent lingered in the air, mingled with a hint of fear. His instincts led him closer to the forest bordering the farm. As he approached the tree line, the low, anguished sound of an animal in distress reached his keen ears. Buck hesitated for a moment, torn between his duty to protect the farm and the urge to investigate the call for help. Curiosity and the protective instinct prevailed. With cautious steps, Buck ventured into the forest, his agile eyes scanning the terrain for the source of the sound. The ground was covered in dry leaves and fallen branches, making each step a silent challenge. After a few minutes of searching, Buck finally found the source of the anguished sound. Entangled in a tangle of vines and fallen branches was a small fox cub, its reddish-orange fur dirty and matted. The cub trembled, its large, frightened eyes fixed on Buck. The contrast between the two could not have been greater. Buck, strong and confident, represented safety and protection. The cub, small and vulnerable, embodied fear and need. Yet something about the situation touched Buck's heart deeply. Carefully, Buck approached the cub. The little animal tried to pull away, but it was too trapped to move. Buck began to work methodically, using his teeth to cut through the vines and pushing aside the branches with his strong paws. The process was slow and delicate, as Buck had to be careful not to hurt the frightened cub any further. While he worked, Buck kept a vigilant eye on the surrounding forest. He knew that predators could be drawn to the sounds of distress from the cub. However, his presence was a strong deterrent to any potential threat. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the last vine was removed. The cub, now free, attempted to stand, but its legs trembled too much to support it. Buck watched with concern, realizing that the little animal was exhausted and possibly injured. Without hesitation, Buck gently picked up the cub by the nape, just as a mother would carry her young. The small creature initially struggled but soon calmed down, as if understanding that Buck was there to help. With the cub safely in his grip, Buck began the journey back to the farm. Each step was cautious, balancing the need to move quickly with the care of not disturbing his fragile passenger. The forest seemed different now, with deeper shadows and more threatening sounds. Upon emerging from the woods, Buck was greeted by the familiar sight of the farm fields. The sun was higher now, dissipating the morning mist and bathing the land in warm, comforting light. Buck felt the cub relax a bit in his hold, as if it too sensed the relief of being out of the darkness of the forest. Buck knew he couldn't take the cub directly to the main house. The humans, though kind, might not understand the situation. Instead, he headed for an old barn on the edge of the property, a place he knew to be warm and safe. Inside the barn, Buck gently placed the cub on a soft mound of hay. The little animal looked around with wide eyes, clearly disoriented by its new environment. Buck lay down beside it, offering warmth and comfort with his presence. As the day wore on, Buck remained vigilant. He stepped out only briefly to fetch water from a nearby stream, always returning quickly to check on his ward. The cub, initially wary, began to snuggle closer to Buck, seeking the warmth and safety that the larger dog provided. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, Buck reflected on the day's events. He knew he had done something out of the ordinary, something that went beyond his usual responsibilities on the farm. But in his heart, he felt that it was the right thing to do. The cub, now peacefully sleeping beside him, represented more than just an animal in distress. It was a reminder that sometimes compassion requires us to step beyond our usual boundaries, to reach out, or in this case, stretch out a paw, to help those who are different from us. As night fell over the Montana farm, Buck kept his vigil, his watchful eyes turned toward the barn entrance. He knew that the challenges that would come with dawn would be many, but for now, in this moment of calm, he allowed himself to feel a sense of accomplishment. The day had brought an unexpected lesson about courage, compassion, and the power of making a difference, one that Buck would carry with him in the days to come. The first rays of sunlight filtered through the cracks in the barn, illuminating the unlikely pair asleep together. Buck woke first, his attentive eyes immediately checking on the fox cub beside him. The small animal was still asleep, its chest rising and falling in a gentle rhythm. Buck stretched carefully, trying not to disturb his protected friend. He knew he needed to return to the farm for his daily tasks, but he hesitated to leave the cub alone. After a few moments of contemplation, Buck decided it was safe to make a quick visit to the main house. As he stepped out of the barn, Buck was greeted by the familiar sight of the Montana fields. The Rocky Mountains rose majestically in the background, their slopes covered in pine and fir trees. The fresh morning air carried the aroma of pine and dew, mixed with the distant smell of coffee and bacon wafting from the farmhouse. In the main house, the Johnson family was already up. Sarah, the youngest daughter, was the first to spot Buck. "Mom, Dad, Buck is here," she shouted, running to hug the dog. John and Mary Johnson, the farm's owners, stepped out onto the porch. "Where have you been, boy?" John asked, petting Buck's head. "We were worried when you didn't show up last night." Buck barked softly, his eyes darting toward the barn. Mary noticed his unusual behavior. "He seems like he wants to show us something," she commented. Meanwhile, in the barn, the baby fox was waking up. Startled to find itself alone in a strange environment, it curled up in the hay, its big eyes scanning the unfamiliar space. Buck quickly returned to the barn, followed at a distance by the Johnsons. Upon entering, he immediately went to the baby, offering comfort with his familiar presence. The little fox visibly relaxed, leaning against Buck's soft fur. The Johnsons watched the scene from the barn entrance, amazed. "Well, look at that," John murmured, impressed. "It seems our Buck has made a new friend." Mary cautiously approached, her experienced gaze assessing the cub. "It's a red fox," she said. "Can't be more than a few weeks old. It probably got separated from its mother." Sarah, fascinated by the scene, asked, "Can we keep him, Mum?" Mary shook her head. "No, sweetheart. He's a wild animal. We need to help him get back to the forest when he's stronger." John agreed. Buck did a great job rescuing him. "Let's let him care for the little one for now, but we'll have to return him to nature soon." In the days that followed, Buck divided his time between his farm duties and caring for the cub. He brought food and water, kept the little one warm on chilly nights, and most importantly, offered companionship and protection. The cub, which Sarah affectionately nicknamed Rusty due to his reddish fur, gradually gained strength. He began to explore the barn, always under Buck's watchful eye. The Johnsons occasionally came to check on their progress, maintaining a respectful distance so as not to interfere with the natural process. As the days passed, the bond between Buck and Rusty grew stronger. Buck, typically focused on his responsibilities on the farm, discovered a new facet of himself, that of a mentor and protector. He demonstrated patience while teaching Rusty to hunt small insects in the barn, showing techniques that would be useful in the wild. Rusty, in turn, thrived under Buck's care. His initial fear transformed into curiosity and confidence. He followed Buck like a shadow, mimicking his movements and learning the nuances of the world around him. The Montana farm, with its golden fields and towering mountains, provided the perfect backdrop for this unlikely friendship. The days were filled with silent lessons of survival, compassion, and the beauty of connections across different species. At night, when the sky filled with stars and the distant howls of coyotes echoed across the hills, Buck and Rusty cuddled together in the barn. It was a constant reminder that sometimes the strongest families are those we choose, not those we are born into. Weeks passed, and Rusty grew strong and healthy under Buck's watchful eye. The old barn had become a sanctuary for the improbable duo, but this peace was about to be disrupted. One foggy morning, while Buck was making his usual rounds around the property, a sharp scream cut through the air. It was Rusty. Buck bolted back to the barn, his heart racing and instincts on high alert. Upon arrival, Buck faced an alarming scene. 2 wild dogs had invaded the barn and were cornering Rusty. The young fox, trapped in a corner, was baring his teeth, but the fear in his eyes was evident. Without hesitation, Buck launched himself between Rusty and the aggressors. His fur bristled, and a deep growl resonated in his chest. The wild dogs, taken aback by Buck's sudden appearance, momentarily retreated. The ensuing confrontation was fierce. Buck, utilizing all his strength and experience, fought to protect Rusty. Their teeth clashed, growls echoed through the barn, and the ground was marked by the struggle. One of the wild dogs managed to sink its teeth into Buck's shoulder, leaving a painful wound, but Buck did not relent. Finally, after an intense struggle, the invaders fled, leaving Buck exhausted and hurt. Rusty, still trembling, cautiously approached his protector, gently licking Buck's wound. The incident brought to light a dilemma Buck had been avoiding. Rusty could not stay in the barn forever. The presence of the young fox was attracting dangers not only for him, but for the entire area around them. In the days that followed, as Buck recovered, he began to intensify Rusty's training. He took the young fox on increasingly longer excursions to the edge of the forest, teaching him to sniff out predators, camouflage himself, and find food. Each lesson was administered with urgency, as if Buck sensed that their time together was running out. Rusty, for his part, showed surprising aptitude. His wild nature, dormant during his time in the barn, began to awaken. He became more agile, more attuned to the sounds and scents of the forest. One day, during one of their excursions, Buck and Rusty spotted a group of foxes in the distance. Buck felt Rusty tense up beside him, his eyes fixed on his fellow foxes. It was a moment of revelation for both of them. Rusty belonged to that world. Back in the barn, Buck was restless. He knew the time to say goodbye was approaching, but the thought tormented him. He had become more than just a protector to Rusty. He was a friend, a mentor, almost a father. One night, while Buck and Rusty were resting in the barn, they heard a distant sound coming from the forest, the call of a fox. Rusty perked up, his ears swiveling toward the noise. Buck felt a tightness in his heart. He recognized that call as a mother searching for her cub. The conflict within Buck reached its peak. His instinct to protect battled against the understanding that Rusty needed to return to his true home. He looked at the young fox, now almost a young adult, and saw not just the frightened animal he had rescued, but a strong and capable being. The next morning, Buck made a difficult decision. He led Rusty to the edge of the forest, farther than they had ever ventured before. There they found the group of foxes again. Among them was a female whose scent was vaguely familiar to Rusty. Buck stepped back, allowing Rusty to approach on his own. The young fox hesitated, looking back at Buck with a mix of fear and hope. Buck stood firm, knowing this was the moment he dreaded but understood was necessary. With one last grateful glance, Rusty moved toward the group of foxes. The female, possibly his mother, welcomed him cautiously but without hostility. As Rusty integrated into the group, Buck watched from a distance, his heart heavy yet filled with pride. The days that followed were a challenge for Buck. The barn, once vibrant with Rusty's presence, now felt empty and silent. Buck spent long hours gazing toward the forest, as if waiting for Rusty to reappear at any moment. Meanwhile, in the woods, Rusty faced his own challenges. Reintegrating into the wild was not easy. He needed to prove his worth to the group, learn to hunt efficiently, and navigate the complex social dynamics of the foxes. Unable to contain his worry, Buck occasionally ventured to the forest's edge. He maintained a respectful distance, but his keen senses searched for signs of Rusty. During one of these excursions, Buck witnessed a scene that filled him with pride. Rusty was leading a small group of young foxes on a hunt. His skills, honed during his time with Buck, made him an exceptional hunter and a valuable member of the group. Back on the farm, Buck found a new purpose. He began spending more time with the other animals on the property, especially the younger and more vulnerable ones. His experience with Rusty had transformed him into a more compassionate and attentive guardian. One day, while patrolling the boundaries of the property, Buck came across a young deer caught in a barbed wire fence. Remembering how he had helped Rusty, Buck patiently worked to free the frightened animal. This act of kindness did not go unnoticed by the other animals on the farm, who began to see Buck not just as a guardian, but as a protector of all. As autumn approached, bringing colder winds and shorter days, the farm prepared for the change of season. The birds began their migrations, and the squirrels stored food for winter. Buck observed these changes with a new understanding of the cycle of life and the importance of each creature in its habitat. One night, while Buck rested near the barn, a familiar scent hit his nose. His ears perked up, alert, and his heart raced. At the forest's edge, partially concealed by shadows, stood Rusty. The young fox looked at Buck, his eyes shining with recognition and affection. For a brief moment, they stared at each other, a silent communication passing between them. Rusty did not approach, and Buck did not move. They both understood that their worlds were now separate, but the bond they had formed remained intact. With one last glance, Rusty disappeared into the forest, leaving Buck with a sense of peace and fulfillment. This experience had changed Buck profoundly. He now understood that his role extended beyond simply guarding the farm. He was a bridge between the domesticated world and the wild, a guardian not only of the physical boundaries of the property, but also of the delicate balance between the different realms of nature. Winter arrived with a vengeance on the Montana farm, blanketing the fields in a thick layer of snow. Buck, with his thick fur, adapted well to the cold, but he noticed the difficulties the season brought for the other animals on the farm. He spent more time watching over the stables, ensuring that the cattle and horses were protected from the biting wind. One particularly frigid night, as Buck made his nightly rounds, a distant howl echoed across the property. It wasn't the familiar sound of coyotes. There was something different. Something that made Buck's fur bristle. The howling was followed by another, then another, forming a sinister chorus that approached the farm. Buck climbed to the highest point on the property, his eyes scanning the darkness. In the dim light of the moon, he saw it. A pack of wolves, thin and hungry, drawing near to the farm. The harsh winter had driven them out of their usual territory in search of food. The shepherd dog knew the situation was dire. The pack was too large for him to confront alone, and the animals on the farm were in danger. Buck barked loudly, a sound of alarm that echoed across the property, causing the horses to whinny nervously and the cattle to stir in their stalls. As the pack approached, Buck had to make a quick decision. He ran toward the main stable, barking and pushing the doors to let the animals out. Horses and cows, frightened yet confident in Buck's leadership, began to move toward the distant barn, a stronger and safer structure. Buck dashed back and forth, keeping the herd together and driving away the wolves that ventured too close. His fierce barking and determined stance kept the pack at bay, but he knew he couldn't do this forever. Then something unexpected happened. From across the field, a group of foxes emerged from the forest. Leading them was Rusty, now fully grown and bearing the presence of a leader. The foxes, typically cautious and solitary, had united under Rusty's leadership. Rusty and his group began to run in circles around the wolf pack, barking and confusing the larger predators. This unexpected tactic divided the wolves' attention, allowing Buck to guide the last of the farm animals to safety. The ensuing battle was intense. Buck and Rusty, old friends reunited under extraordinary circumstances, coordinated their efforts with surprising synchronicity. The foxes, agile and clever, provoked and distracted the wolves, while Buck used his strength and courage to repel direct attacks. The struggle continued through the night, with neither side willing to yield. The wolves, desperate for food, were persistent, but Buck's determination and Rusty's cunning proved to be a formidable combination. As the sun began to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, the wolves finally retreated. Exhausted and defeated, they disappeared into the forest, leaving behind a silent battlefield. Buck, panting and wounded but victorious, watched as Rusty approached him. The two locked eyes, a moment of recognition and mutual respect passing between them. They were no longer mentor and apprentice, but equals, each a leader in their own right. Rusty let out a soft bark, as if bidding farewell, and then led his group of foxes back into the forest. Buck watched as they departed, his heart filled with pride and gratitude. This event marked a profound change, not only for Buck, but for the entire dynamic of the farm and the surrounding forest. News of the battle spread quickly among the animals, both domestic and wild. Buck was no longer seen merely as the guardian of the farm, but as a protector of all, capable of uniting different species in times of need. The farm animals, witnesses to Buck's bravery, began to treat him with a new level of respect and trust. Even the forest creatures started to view the farm not as a threat, but as part of a larger ecosystem where different species could coexist and even cooperate. For Buck, this experience was a revelation. He understood that his role extended beyond the boundaries of the farm. He was a guardian of the balance between the domesticated and the wild, a living symbol of the possibility of harmony between different worlds. As winter gave way to spring, Buck looked toward the horizon with a new perspective. The world had changed, and so had he. New challenges would certainly come, but now he knew he was not alone. The lesson from Rusty of courage, leadership, and the importance of building bridges between different communities would stay with him forever. Spring arrived at the Montana farm, bringing new sprouts, wildflowers, and a renewed sense of life. The wolf attack during the winter had left deep marks, not only on the farm's terrain, but also on the dynamics among the region's animals. Buck, recovered from his injuries, noticed significant changes around him. The farm animals, once wary of any wild creature, now showed a cautious curiosity. A young colt, inspired by the bravery he had witnessed, now ventured closer to the fence, observing the forest with interest rather than fear. In the forest, Rusty's influence was evident. The foxes, traditionally solitary, began to form small groups, inspired by the leadership Rusty had demonstrated during the wolf attack. These groups, though still cautious, started to venture closer to the farm, sometimes visible at the edges of the field at dawn and dusk. One day, while Buck patrolled the property's limits, he noticed something unusual. A small group of deer, typically timid and skittish, grazed peacefully near the farm fence. Upon seeing Buck, they raised their heads, alert but not immediately fleeing. One of the deer, a young male, even took a few steps toward Buck, as if recognizing him as an ally. This scene repeated itself with various animals over the following weeks. Rabbits played more openly in the fields, birds that once avoided the farm now built nests in the barns, and even a grumpy badger seemed less hostile in its encounters with Buck. The most significant change, however, came with the wolves. The pack that had attacked during the winter did not return, but Buck occasionally spotted solitary wolves or pairs on the distant hills. They showed no signs of aggression, merely observing the farm from afar, as if re-evaluating their place in this new balance. Buck found himself in a new role. Beyond being the guardian of the farm, he became a mediator between the domestic and wild worlds. When a farm animal ventured too close to the forest, Buck gently guided it back. When wild creatures approached the stables, he firmly but non-hostilely led them away. One night, under the glow of a full moon, Buck heard a familiar sound coming from the forest, the bark of Rusty. Following the sound, Buck arrived at the edge of the woods, where he found Rusty waiting for him. The fox, now fully mature and exuding the presence of a leader, was not alone. Beside him stood a young female fox, clearly his mate. Rusty and Buck couldn't communicate with words, but their looks and postures spoke volumes. Rusty seemed to be showing Buck his new family, sharing his success and happiness. Buck, in turn, barked softly in approval, his chest swelling with pride for the growth of his former protégé. This encounter symbolized more than just a simple reunion. It was a testament to the new balance that had been established in the region. Rusty, raised with Buck's values, had carried those lessons into the wild, fostering a more harmonious coexistence among the different species of the forest. As spring transitioned into summer, the Montana farm and the surrounding forest pulsed with new energy. The battle against the wolves had proven that cooperation among different species was not only possible but valuable for the survival of all. Buck, observing all of this from his vantage point on the hill, felt a deep sense of satisfaction. His world had expanded far beyond the confines of the property. He now understood that his responsibility extended to an entire ecosystem, where every creature, no matter how small, played a vital role. With this newfound understanding, Buck prepared for the challenges that the future would surely bring. He knew that maintaining this delicate balance would not be easy, but he was determined to continue his role as a guardian, protector, and now, more than ever, as a bridge builder between worlds. As summer advanced, new challenges and opportunities arose for Buck and the inhabitants of the farm and forest. The intense heat and scarcity of rain began to affect the region, testing the resilience of all the animals. Buck, ever vigilant, noticed subtle changes in the environment. The streams running through the property began to dwindle, and the grass in the fields became drier and less abundant. He observed that the farm animals, especially the cattle, were growing restless and uncomfortable with the heat and lack of fresh water. Determined to help, Buck began guiding the herd to cooler areas of the farm, where the shade of the trees provided some relief. He also discovered a small spring hidden away in a remote part of the property, and with persistence, he managed to lead groups of animals there to drink. In the forest, the situation was not much different. Buck watched with concern as wild animals ventured closer to the farm in search of water and food. He knew this could lead to conflicts, but he also understood the desperate need driving them. It was at this moment that Buck faced one of his greatest challenges. He needed to find a way to balance the needs of the farm animals with those of the wild animals without causing conflicts or depleting the limited resources. One particularly hot afternoon, Buck noticed a group of deer timidly approaching the cattle's watering hole. His initial instinct was to chase them away, protecting the farm's resources. But then, recalling the lessons learned from Rusty and the battle against the wolves, Buck hesitated. After a moment of reflection, Buck made a courageous decision. Instead of driving the deer away, he positioned himself between them and the cattle, maintaining a distance that allowed both groups to drink without conflict. It was a delicate act of balance and animal diplomacy that required all of Buck's patience and skill. This act of compassion did not go unnoticed. The other farm animals, witnessing Buck's leadership, began to show more tolerance toward the creatures of the forest. The cattle started sharing their pastures with small groups of deer, and the hens no longer panicked when foxes passed by the coop with no hostile intentions. Buck grew in his role as a mediator. He learned to read the subtle signs of tension among different animal groups and to intervene before conflicts escalated. His steady and calm presence became a symbol of security and balance for all. One day, while leading a mixed group of farm and forest animals to the spring, Buck encountered a new challenge. A landslide, caused by the drought, had blocked access to the water source. The animals, thirsty and weary, looked to Buck for guidance. In this moment, Buck had to push past his own limits. He began to dig, using his strong paws to remove dirt and stones. Other animals, inspired by his determination, joined in. Deer used their hooves, foxes dug with their agile paws, and even the birds helped by removing small stones with their beaks. After hours of hard work under the blazing sun, the group finally managed to clear a path to the water. When the first jet of fresh water gushed from the ground, a wave of joy and accomplishment swept over all the animals. Buck, exhausted but satisfied, watched as everyone drank side by side, without distinction between domestic and wild. This event marked a profound transformation for Buck and the entire animal community. Buck was no longer just a farm dog or a guardian of the property. He had become a respected leader among all creatures, capable of uniting different species for a common good. As summer drew to a close, the Montana farm and the surrounding forest had undergone a remarkable transformation. Where there had once been separation and distrust, there was now a diverse and cooperative community. Buck, gazing across the fields at sunset, felt a deep pride. He had grown beyond his own expectations, overcoming prejudices and limits he hadn't even known existed. The shepherd dog now understood that his true strength lay not in his ability to protect or lead, but in his capacity to unite, to build bridges between different worlds. With this newfound understanding, Buck prepared himself for whatever the future might bring, knowing that together they could overcome any challenge. Autumn had arrived on the Montana farm, bringing with it chilly winds and the promise of change. The leaves on the trees began to turn golden and red, and the air carried the unmistakable scent of the season. Buck, now a respected leader, both on the farm and in the forest, felt that something important was about to happen. One morning, while making his usual patrol, he noticed troubling signs. The wind carried the faint smell of smoke, and the sky on the horizon bore an orange hue that was not just the sunrise. The farm animals were restless, and the creatures of the forest seemed to be moving toward the property in greater numbers than usual. Buck climbed to the highest point on the farm to get a better view. There, his heart raced at what he saw. A wildfire was approaching, driven by the strong autumn winds. The summer drought had left the forest vulnerable, and now the flames were advancing rapidly, threatening everything in their path. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Buck knew he had to act fast. He raced back to the farm, barking loudly to alert all the animals. His bark, now recognized as a signal of leadership, quickly gathered the farm animals. Buck then headed to the edge of the forest and emitted a series of barks and howls, a call that echoed through the woods. It was a signal for the wild animals, a message that Rusty had taught his group and that spread among the creatures of the forest. Before long, an extraordinary scene unfolded. Animals of all species began to emerge from the woods: deer, foxes, rabbits, squirrels, and even some smaller predators. All moved toward the farm, guided by Buck's call. Buck understood that the farm, with its open fields and stone buildings, offered the best chance of survival against the approaching fire. But he also knew that sheltering so many animals together would be a monumental challenge. With determination, Buck began to organize the animals. He guided the cattle and horses to the field farthest from the fire, while directing the smaller animals to the barns and stables. The birds perched on the rooftops and trees of the farm, creating a surreal vision of diversity. Rusty arrived with his group of foxes and immediately joined Buck in the organizing efforts. Together, they worked tirelessly to ensure that each animal found a safe place. As the smoke thickened and the heat of the fire intensified, Buck faced his greatest leadership challenge. He needed to maintain calm among species that would normally be predators and prey, now forced to coexist in close quarters. Buck ran from group to group, his presence soothing the frightened animals. He broke up fights before they started, comforted the young ones, and guided the lost. His energy seemed boundless, fueled by the urgency of the situation. Meanwhile, Rusty led groups of smaller animals on missions to fetch water from the nearby stream, creating a wet defense line around the farm. Hours passed, and the fire drew closer. The sky was darkened by smoke, and the air grew hotter by the minute. The animals, despite their fear, remained united, trusting in the leadership of Buck and Rusty. Buck knew that the true test was still to come. The fire would arrive soon, and the survival of all would depend not only on his leadership, but also on the cooperation of every animal present. As he watched the flaming horizon, Buck felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. This was not just a test of his leadership, but a test of the new balance and harmony that had been built between the domestic and wild worlds. With one last look at the gathered animals, Buck prepared to face the final challenge. The fire was coming, and with it, the moment that would define the fate of everyone on the Montana farm. The roar of the flames approached, and the intense heat made the air shimmer. Buck was at the center of the farm, his watchful eyes alternating between the burning horizon and the animals gathered around him. The crucial moment had arrived. Suddenly, a gust of hot wind brought a shower of sparks over the farm. Some animals panicked, but Buck barked firmly, calming them. He knew that panic could be just as dangerous as the fire. Rusty and his group of foxes darted back and forth, extinguishing small fires with dirt in their fluffy tails. The deer, with their strong hooves, stomped out any flames that threatened to spread through the dry grass. The main fire was quickly approaching the edge of the farm. Buck realized they needed a more aggressive strategy. With a commanding bark, he gathered the larger animals, horses, cows, and even some moose that had joined the group. Leading this unlikely team, Buck took them to the stream. There, they soaked their bodies with water. Then, in a surprising scene, Buck led this line of animal firefighters back to the edge of the farm, where they positioned themselves as a living barrier against the advancing flames. The larger animals, with their wet bodies, formed a wall against the heat, while the smaller ones worked tirelessly to extinguish any sparks that crossed the line. At the peak of the battle against the fire, Buck heard a piercing cry. A fawn had become separated from its mother and was running in panic toward the burning forest. Without hesitation, Buck ran after it. The heat was intense, and the smoke made visibility difficult. Buck followed the sound of the frightened bleats of the fawn, dodging falling branches and jumping over burning logs. Finally, he reached the fawn, which was trapped in a circle of fire. Buck knew there was no time to lose. He grabbed the fawn by the nape, just as he had done with Rusty long ago, and began to run back to the farm. The return path seemed endless, with the fire closing in around him. When Buck emerged from the smoke carrying the fawn, he was greeted by a chorus of barks, moos, and squeals of relief. Rusty rushed to help him, guiding them back to the safety of the defense line. The battle against the fire continued through the night. Buck led tirelessly, organizing groups to rotate at the front line, ensuring that tired animals could rest and that the injured received care. As the sun began to rise, the intensity of the fire finally started to diminish. Buck's strategy had worked. The farm was scorched in some areas, but for the most part, intact. More importantly, all the animals had survived. Exhausted yet vigilant, Buck climbed to the highest point of the farm to assess the situation. The surrounding forest was devastated, with charred trees and smoke still rising in some places. But the farm remained a green island amidst the destruction. As he watched, Buck noticed something extraordinary. Tiny green shoots were already beginning to emerge from the blackened earth. Life, resilient and stubborn, was renewing itself. The animals began to gather around Buck. There were no longer distinctions between the creatures of the farm and those of the forest. They all looked at Buck with a mix of gratitude, respect, and expectation. Rusty approached, stopping beside Buck. The two exchanged a look of mutual understanding. They had faced the greatest challenge of their lives and emerged victorious, not through strength, but through unity and cooperation. Buck stepped forward and let out a long howl, which was immediately joined by the chorus of voices from all the animals present. It was a sound of triumph, of relief, but also of a new understanding. In that moment, everyone realized that the old divisions between domestic and wild, between predator and prey, had been burned away along with the forest. From the ashes, a new community was born, united by the shared experience and Buck's inspiring leadership. As the sun climbed in the sky, illuminating the farm and the reborn forest, Buck felt a deep sense of accomplishment. He had not only protected the farm and saved lives, but also forged a new path for all, a path of cooperation, mutual respect, and harmony with nature. The fire, in its destructive fury, had paradoxically created something beautiful and lasting, a truly united community, ready to face any challenge the future might bring. In the weeks that followed the Great Fire, the Montana farm and the surrounding forest underwent a remarkable transformation. What had once been a clear divide between the domestic world and the wild had now become a unique and harmonious ecosystem. Buck, recognized as the great hero and leader of this new community, watched with pride as the changes unfolded. The animals from the farm and the forest worked together to rebuild and regenerate the areas damaged by the fire. Deer and horses grazed side by side in the green fields that were beginning to sprout. Foxes and rabbits, once predator and prey, now cooperated in building temporary shelters for the displaced creatures of the forest. Even the birds participated, bringing seeds from unaffected areas to help regenerate the vegetation. Rusty, now a respected leader among the foxes, frequently visited the farm, bringing news of the recovering forest and coordinating mutual aid efforts. His friendship with Buck, forged in adversity and strengthened by their recent trial, served as a powerful symbol of the new order. One day, while Buck was on his usual rounds, he noticed something extraordinary. In the spot where the fire had been most intense, where there had once been only ashes and destruction, a field of wildflowers of a species he had never seen before was now blooming. The flowers, with vibrant blue petals and golden centers, seemed to capture the essence of the sky and the sun. Buck understood that this new life, born literally from the ashes, was a testament to nature's resilience and a symbol of hope for the future. Just as these flowers had found a way to thrive after the destruction, the community he led had emerged stronger and united after facing adversity. As autumn gave way to winter, the Montana farm prepared for its first cold season as a truly integrated community. plans were made to share resources, ensuring that all animals, both from the farm and the forest, could survive comfortably. Buck, in his newfound wisdom, knew that challenges would continue to arise. The balance they had achieved was delicate and would need to be constantly maintained and nurtured, but he also knew that together they were capable of overcoming any obstacle. As he watched the sunset from his favorite spot on the hill, Buck reflected on his journey. From a simple farm dog to a leader who united two worlds, he had grown and changed in ways he never could have imagined. Yet in his heart, he remained the same Buck, loyal, brave, and always ready to protect those who depended on him. With a soft, satisfied bark, Buck turned and descended the hill, ready for another night of vigil over his new and united kingdom, a guardian not just of a farm, but of a vision of harmony and cooperation that extended far beyond the limits of any fence or forest. Years passed, and the legend of Buck, the dog who united two worlds, echoed throughout the region. The Montana farm and the surrounding forest thrived, becoming a model of harmonious coexistence between domestic and wild animals. Although Buck had aged, his spirit remained strong. He now spent his days guiding a new generation of guardians, puppies of various species, learning the principles of leadership, compassion, and unity. On a golden autumn afternoon, Buck watched with satisfaction a scene that would have seemed impossible years ago. A wolf pup happily playing with a lamb in the field. In that moment, he knew that his legacy would live on long after his days were over. Sweet dreams, my little ones. Let the night carry you gently, and know that tomorrow I'll have more magical stories for you.